Picture this. It's 3 a.m. on May 13th, 1862. A black man in a Confederate uniform stands at the wheel of a massive warship loaded with cannons and ammunition. He's about to sail past 5 Confederate forts in Charleston Harbor. One wrong move, one suspicious signal, and he's dead. His family is dead. Everyone on board is dead. But here's the twist. He's not trying to escape to freedom. He's stealing an entire Confederate warship and delivering it to the Union as a gift. His name was Robert Smalls, and what he did next would make this daring escape look like child's play. Let me take you back to 1839, Beaufort, South Carolina. Robert Smalls is born into slavery in a small cabin behind his enslaver's mansion. But here's what most people don't know. His mother, Lydia, did something extraordinary. Something that would save his life decades later. When Robert was just 12 years old, his mother made a calculated decision. She convinced her enslaver to hire Robert out to work in Charleston. But not in the cotton fields, not in the factories. She got him hired to work on the docks, and eventually on ships. Now you might think, okay, so he worked on boats. So what? But Lydia knew something. She knew that a black boy who understood the water, who could read the tides, who could navigate the treacherous Charleston Harbor with its shifting sandbars and hidden channels, that boy had knowledge. And knowledge, even in chains, was a form of power. So for years, Robert worked as a deckhand, a rigger, a wheelman. He memorized every inch of Charleston Harbor, every sandbar, every channel marker, every Confederate fort and their signal codes. The white officers barely noticed him, just another enslaved man doing manual labor. But Robert was studying, learning, preparing. By 1861, when the Civil War erupted, Robert Smalls was working on the CSS Planter, a Confederate transport ship that moved troops, supplies, and weapons. He knew that ship like the back of his hand. He knew the harbor even better. But here's the revelation that ends this chapter. Robert wasn't just planning to escape. He was planning something so audacious, so impossible, that when he told his wife Hannah about it, she thought he'd lost his mind. He was going to steal a Confederate warship. In broad daylight, right under the nose of the Confederate Army. May 12, 1862. The white officers of the CSS Planter decide to spend the night ashore, leaving the enslaved crew to guard the ship. This was common. Why would enslaved men steal a ship? Where would they even go? Robert Smalls knew this was his moment. At 3 a.m. on May 13th, he puts on the captain's straw hat. He knows the silhouette matters. Guards in the forts need to see that distinctive hat against the moonlight. Then he does something that sounds insane. He sails to multiple docks around Charleston Harbor, picking up his family and the families of his crew. His wife Hannah, his 3 children, including a baby. 16 people total, hiding below deck. Now imagine this. He's piloting a Confederate warship in a Confederate uniform past 5 Confederate forts with 16 black people hidden below. If they're caught, it's not just death, it's torture, execution, an example made for anyone who dares to dream of freedom. As they approach Fort Sumter, yes, that Fort Sumter where the Civil War started, Robert pulls the ship's steam whistle cord. He gives the exact Confederate signal, 2 long blows, 1 short. The signal that says all is well. The Confederate guards wave them through. When he passes Fort Moultrie, same thing, perfect signal. They wave him on. But here's where it gets crazy. As soon as he clears the last Confederate fort, Robert Smalls does something that must have felt like the most dangerous and liberating moment of his life. He tears down the Confederate flag. His crew runs up a white bedsheet, a flag of surrender, and he sails that ship straight toward the Union blockade, praying they don't blow him out of the water before they realize what's happening. The Union Navy is stunned. Absolutely stunned. Here comes a Confederate warship, surrendering, with a black man at the wheel, delivering not just himself and his family to freedom, but a fully armed warship with all its weapons, ammunition, and, here's the kicker, a book of Confederate signal codes and maps of underwater mines in Charleston Harbor. Robert Smalls just handed the Union Navy the keys to Charleston. But you think that's where the story ends? That he escapes slavery, becomes a hero, lives happily ever after? Not even close. Because what Robert Smalls did after this escape is where the story gets really unbelievable. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. There are hundreds more stories like this. Black American heroes whose names you've never heard, whose courage deserves to be remembered. Drop a comment and tell me, whose story should I tell next?